Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at a film called A Good Woman is Hard to Find. Right at the beginning, we see a woman called Sarah, covered in blood and standing against the wall. She closes her eyes for a moment and then takes a shower to wash the blood off her. We are then told her story and the events that led to this situation. Sarah is then seen at the grocery store with her children, Lucy and Ben. The boy takes a bar of chocolate from one of the shelves and eats it. Before she can stop him, one of the employees at the store confronts her and gives her the wrapper that her son threw on the ground, telling her she needs to pay for it. She appears to be upset by this and takes it. At the cashier, after noticing the employee observing her from a distance, she pulls the wrapper out of her pocket and gives it to the cashier to add to the bill. After seeing the bill, she realizes it exceeds her budget and cancels a few items on the list as she leaves the store. A man called Tito is seen passing by her and starts observing two men who are selling something kept in the back of their car to a passerby. Back at Sarah's home, after feeding her children, she is seen singing a nursery rhyme. Although Lucy seems interested and is happily singing along, Ben stays quiet. Sarah then puts the kids to sleep and leaves the room. Later that night, she tries to pleasure herself with an electric banana that she keeps under her pillow, but finds the battery drained. She then uses the batteries from one of her children's toys to pleasure herself and goes to sleep. The next day she goes to the police and asks for some information about the mysterious death of her husband, Stephen Collins. After checking the records, the agent tells her to let it go, refusing to give her any information. Sarah is then seen at her mother's. Her mother Alice expresses her concern for Sarah, telling her she needs to toughen up. She then offers for Sarah to come live with her, but Sarah turns her offer down, saying she's doing fine by herself. Next, Sarah takes her children to their father's grave and brings flowers to put in it. After Ben puts the flowers on his father's grave, Sarah takes her children's hands and looks at the grave with tears rolling down her cheeks. Tito is then seen checking the doors of the cars on the roadside to see if any of them were left unlocked. He is able to find one open and gets inside it. He then takes the car at full speed to a mysterious man's car and crashes into it from behind. The impact breaks open the trunk of the car and Tito quickly grabs something from inside the trunk and makes a run for it. He sees Sarah getting inside her house with her children and rushes in after her. He threatens her and tells her not to make a sound. The frightened Sarah requests Tito to let her take her children back to their room, thinking he might want something from her. She takes the children to their room and returns to see Tito coming out of her bathroom. Tito then tells her to not tell anyone of his presence and leaves. The mysterious men are then revealed to be gangsters who appear in front of their boss and tell him about the stolen valuable items. The boss gets angry and tells them to immediately bring them back. That night Tito returns to Sarah's house and takes the stolen items, which are revealed to be drugs, out of a hidden compartment in her bathtub and gives her 40% of the money he got after selling some of it. He tells her he needs to keep his drugs at her place as she is a mother of 2 kids, and no one would ever suspect her. Sarah tells him she does not want to be a part in any of this and begs him to leave, but he refuses, threatening to kill her if she doesn't comply. The next day, Sarah, who is desperate to know the reason for her husband's death, takes her children to the place where her husband was killed. She asks her son if he remembers anything about the death of his father, but Ben stands there terrified, not uttering a word. Sarah decides that it was wrong for her to take Ben there and apologizes to him, before leaving. Tito returns to Sarah's house that night, and starts casually watching the TV. Sarah asks him if he was running from the police, but he laughs at her and tells her that he was running from gangsters. This upsets Sarah and she starts begging him to leave, saying she has young kids to take care of. Tito tells her he just needs to stay for a few days and then he'll leave. Sarah then tells Tito that her husband was stabbed to death and asks him if he knows anything about it. She further tells him that no one saw what happened to her husband, she just arrived there later to find Ben crying beside his father's dead body. Tito looks at her picture with her husband and remarks she looks nothing like her old self, as Sarah has stopped taking care of herself after her husband's death. Tito initially denies knowing her husband, but after learning his name he recognizes it from the newspaper, saying that he was also a drug dealer. Sarah gets upset and says that can't be true, her tone clearly showing the hatred she has towards drug dealers. Tito, who is a drug dealer himself, gets angry and starts yelling at her. The next day at the grocery store, the employee from earlier notices Sarah doing a lot of shopping. He approaches her and asks her how much she charges, implying she must be earning it the easy way, and then just leaves laughing. At home, Sarah enjoys a great carefree day with her children. They enjoy a good meal, watch movies, and play together. After taking them to bed, Sarah goes to the bathroom and decides to try the drugs out. However, she's called by one of her children and leaves without properly covering the compartment with drugs. She later notices that the drugs are missing from the bathroom. She goes into a room and finds Ben, sitting on the floor, with drugs scattered all around him and then open package in his hand. She panics and takes the drugs out of his hand immediately, taking him to the bathroom, washing the drugs off him and making him spit out everything in his mouth. She later sits with him in his bed asking if he's okay, over and over again. When Tito starts knocking at her door, she doesn't leave the bed and keeps sitting with her children. Tito breaks the glass on the door and gets inside. Sarah then closes her children's bedroom door and goes out to him. He notices that the drugs are missing and sees them on the ground. Sarah starts apologizing, saying she will pay for his loss, but he gets angry and grabs her by the throat. Sarah says she would do anything he wants and he takes her to the bedroom where he forces himself on her. Sarah pulls her vibrator from under her pillow and hits him in the eye with it. She quickly gets off the bed as he screams in pain. He then attacks her again, as she finds the knife on her dresser and stabs him repeatedly in the side, until he falls to the ground and dies. Sarah then goes to her children's room and tells them the man is gone. She then hears the door and goes to answer. Outside, she sees two policemen. She learns that someone had called the police after hearing shouting from her house. She gets alarmed but tries to stay calm, acting as if nothing had happened. The policemen come inside and start observing the house, seeing the broken door. By her terrified face, they conclude that she is being abused by her husband. They ask her if she wants to report anything, but she refuses. One of the policemen asked why she likes being knocked around, as he believed she's not reporting what someone is doing to her. This infuriates her and she tells them to leave her house immediately. The next day, she goes to her mother's and asks her to take care of her children, while she is out at a night shift for a new job she just started. Her mother reminds her that she was supposed to go back to the doctor today and gets disappointed at her for forgetting. Both women end up in a heated argument, where her mother tells her that marrying Stephen was a big mistake. She could have gone to college, made a great future for herself, but instead she chose to marry a drug dealer and now everything has ended this way. This upsets Sarah as she never believed her husband was involved in this kind of business. She could never believe he was a drug dealer. Infuriated, she swears at her mother and leaves. We then see the gangsters at the house of two of Tito's friends, where they are asking them about Tito's whereabouts. Tito's friends tell them they have no idea where he is, and are both then killed by their boss. We then see Sarah buying an axe and a saw. After returning home, she covers a room with plastic sheets and proceeds to cut Tito's body into little pieces, placing the parts in trash bags. She then takes off the blood-covered plastic sheets from the walls and removes every drop of blood from the furniture. This scene is followed by the one shown at the beginning of the movie, where a bloody Sarah washes the blood off her face and body. After this, she disposes of the trash bags outside. The next day she takes Ben to the psychiatrist. The psychiatrist tells Sarah that Ben has been traumatized by the death of his father, as he was the only one who witnessed his death. Because of that, Ben has hidden the traumatizing memory away in his brain, and refuses to talk, as he knows when he does, he will be asked about it. The doctor says that once the incident is out, then he will start talking again. This ends up upsetting Sarah and she leaves in a fury. When Lucy hears a new word, she keeps repeating it over and over again. This time the word that she starts repeating is Tito. Although Sarah keeps telling her not to, Lucy keeps repeating it. A gangster hears Lucy and gets suspicious. The gangsters then start keeping an eye on Sarah. She is then visited by a social worker who believes she might not be eligible to take care of her children. She mentions the police reports, mentioning that alcohol was consumed that night, the house looked unkempt, and shouting was heard from the house. The social worker asked her what actually happened that night, and Sarah reveals to her that a man had broken into her house and sexually assaulted her when she stabbed him in the eye with her vibrator. The social worker gets confused, not knowing what exactly to write in the reports, and leaves. The next day Sarah notices the gangster's car parked outside her house. She quickly takes her children and goes out the back door, but the gangsters find her and start asking about Tito, who they assume was her boyfriend. Sarah denies knowing anything about Tito and doesn't tell them anything. When the boss arrives, Ben gets terrified and starts running away, stopping in the middle of the road. A lorry stops and two men come out. While the gangsters are busy with the workers, Sarah runs to Ben and asks him if that was the man that killed his father, while Ben nods. Sarah then takes her children to her mother's place and reconciles with her. Sarah tells her that though her mother wasn't the one to express her love and affection, she had always been there for her, and she is thankful for that. Her mother also tells her that the love between Stephen and Sarah was hard for her to understand, because she personally never loved anyone, except for Sarah. The two then bond, and then Sarah goes up to her children, where she says the rhyme for them, again. She promises Ben that she will never let the gangster hurt him, after which he says his first word ever, since the day his father had died. Extremely happy with this, she descends the stairs to find the gangster's boss standing at her mother's door. Not wanting any disturbance there, Sarah tells him that she will bring Tito to his place in an hour. She gets ready and makes her way to the gangster's place. One of the gangsters leads her to his boss, who asks her about Tito. She asks them to open her bag and pulls Tito's head out. The boss starts laughing, while the other gangsters step away from her, calling her psycho. Sarah then asks the boss if he remembers her husband, which makes him stop laughing, realizing she has come for revenge. He gives his men the signal to end her life, but she pulls a gun out of Tito's head and shoots both of them. The boss grabs his gun and shoots at her, but misses. Sarah takes the chance to put a bullet in his shoulder, severely injuring him. With a gun held to his head, she asks him why he killed her husband. He reveals to her that Stephen tried to play the nice guy and interfered when the boss was about to kill someone who owed him money. Not liking the interference, the boss stabbed him to death. He then grabs a gun, but just as he's about to shoot Sarah, she puts a bullet in his head and kills him. One of the gangsters starts groaning and Sarah finishes him off, with a blow of a hammer to his head. Sarah is then seen shopping at the grocery store. She has now started taking care of herself and her appearance. The nosy employee approaches her again and tells her that she must be getting paid well, implying he wants to be a client as well. Sarah tells Ben to grab a chocolate bar from the shelf and gives the wrapper to the employee, saying if he does not pay for it, she will go straight to management and tell them that he flashed his privates in front of her children. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and remember to activate the notification bell for more.